At first glance, this Nissan actually looks pretty good. The paint is shiny, the color looks nice, and most people would probably leave it exactly like this. But when you start looking a little closer, you'll notice a few fisheyes and small imperfections hiding in the finish. Now, the goal today isn't to remove a ton of orange peel because this repaint doesn't really have much of it. Instead, I'm going to show you how I tackle these defects and bring the finish to that next level. A lot of people think a paint job has to be perfect straight out of the gun, but that's rarely the case. Sometimes all it takes is a little correction, a little polishing, and the right technique to transform the way a car looks. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I fix these problem areas, refine the finish, and chase that smooth, glass-like shine every painter wants. Let's see how much we can improve this Nissan. Right now, Joseph is using 1,500 grit sandpaper with plenty of water to gently level the surface. Notice that he's using his hand instead of a sanding block. Since we're only targeting a few small imperfections and fisheyes, using your hand gives you a little more feel for what's happening on the surface. And before somebody jumps into the comments and says, "You're scratching the paint." Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. Wet sanding is controlled scratching. The trick is knowing how much to remove and when to stop. The water is doing two important jobs here. First, it's helping the sandpaper glide smoothly across the paint. Second, it's carrying away the tiny particles that are being removed from the surface. Without enough water, the paper can clog up and leave deeper scratches than you want. One mistake beginners make is pressing too hard. Wet sanding isn't a gym workout. You're not trying to bench press the Nissan. Let the sandpaper do the work. Light, consistent pressure is usually all you need. As Joseph continues sanding, the goal isn't to make the paint shiny. In fact, the area will actually start looking dull and hazy. That's completely normal. A lot of people panic when they see that haze and think they've ruined the paint. Relax, that's part of the process. What we're looking for is a more uniform surface. The fish eyes and imperfections are little high and low spots in the finish, and this sanding step helps level them out. Think of it like flattening a bumpy road before laying fresh asphalt. So for now, we're taking our time, keeping the surface wet, checking our progress regularly, and staying patient. Good paint correction isn't about rushing. It's about making hundreds of small, controlled decisions that add up to a better finish in the end. Now take a look at these fish eyes right here. We've already sanded the surface, but these ones are being stubborn and don't want to disappear. This is where a lot of people get frustrated and start sanding too aggressively. Don't worry, I'll show you a simple trick in a moment that can help deal with defects like these without causing more problems. All right, this fisheye has decided it wants to stay on the car permanently, but unfortunately for it, we're not giving it that option. To deal with a stubborn defect like this, we're switching to a rubber sanding block with some 1,500 grit sandpaper. The reason we're using a block instead of just our hand is because a block spreads the pressure more evenly across the surface. That helps us level the defect without creating little dips and waves in the paint. As always, we're keeping the surface nice and wet. Water is your friend during wet sanding. It helps the paper cut smoothly and reduces the chance of leaving deeper scratches behind. Now, the goal here isn't to sand the entire panel into another dimension. We're only focusing on the area around the defect. Slow, controlled passes are much better than getting carried away and sanding like you're trying to start a fire. Keep checking your progress every few passes. Sand a little, inspect a little, and repeat. Patience is cheaper than repainting. You can already see the defects starting to level out. That's exactly what we want. Small steps, steady progress, and before you know it, that stubborn fisheye starts realizing it's not winning this battle. All right, take a look at that. After a little patience and some careful sanding, the area is looking much cleaner already. The defect has been leveled out nicely, and the surface is now much more uniform. It might look dull right now, but that's exactly what we want before moving on to the polishing stage. Before we move on to polishing, Joseph is giving the area a good wipe down. This step might seem simple, but it's actually very important. Wet sanding leaves behind water, sanding residue, and tiny particles of clear coat that can hide on the surface. By wiping everything clean, we get a better look at the work we've done and make sure there isn't any leftover residue that could interfere with the polishing process. Think of it as clearing the stage before the main performance. A clean surface helps us see exactly what we're working with and gives the polish the best chance to do its job. For the polishing stage, we're starting with an M1 compound. This is our cutting step, so we're running a moderate speed to safely refine the surface after sanding. It helps remove those fine sanding marks and starts bringing back the gloss. After that, we'll switch to a finishing polish at a lower speed to really bring out that deep, clean reflection. And remember, if you're doing this yourself, use a compound and polish you trust, and that's available in your area. Just make sure you follow the correct speed settings for your machine. All right, now Joseph is finally on the machine, and this is where everything starts coming together. This is the polishing stage, and honestly, this is the part that separates a rough finish from a proper glass-like result. Now remember, we've already sanded and leveled the surface, so right now the paint might still look a bit dull or hazy. That's completely normal. What we're doing with the polish is refining those sanding marks and slowly bringing the gloss back. You'll notice Joseph is working in small sections at a time. That's very important. If you try to do the whole panel at once, you lose control of your work time and pressure, and that's when mistakes happen. Small areas, controlled movements, and consistent passes are the key. Also, don't rush the machine. Let the polish do the work. A lot of beginners think more speed means more shine, but that's not true. It's actually about balance. Correct pressure, correct speed, and correct pad movement. If you move too fast, you don't break down the polish properly, and if you push too hard, you risk overheating the paint. Now, as Joseph is working, you can already start to see the reflection slowly coming back. That dull, sanded look is fading, and the gloss is building step by step. This is why patience is so important in detailing. You don't see the final result instantly, you build it. And here's something most people don't talk about. Your pad condition matters just as much as your polish. If your pad gets too dry or clogged, your results drop fast. That's why you'll see Joseph cleaning or reloading the pad regularly. It keeps everything consistent and smooth. Also, don't forget to overlap your passes. Think of it like mowing a lawn. You don't want to leave stripes. Overlapping ensures even correction across the panel. Now, if you're watching closely, you'll see the paint going from a soft haze to a much clearer reflection. That's the correction happening in real time. This is the moment where people usually say, wait, that's the same panel? We're going to keep refining this section until the gloss is fully restored. And if you're watching till the end, you'll see how close we get to that true glass finish. No shortcuts, just proper correction step by step. right, we're still on the polishing stage, and now things are really starting to change on this panel. At this point, Joseph is refining the surface even more, going over the same area with controlled, consistent passes to make sure every sanding mark is being properly removed. Now this is where a lot of people mess up. They think once it starts looking shiny, they can just stop. But polishing doesn't work like that. The first bit of gloss you see is only the beginning. You still need to finish the job properly so the reflection is clear and even across the whole panel. You'll also notice the movement is still slow and controlled. There's no rushing here. If you move too fast, the polish doesn't break down properly, and you end up with a hazy finish instead of that deep gloss we're chasing. And check this out. The reflection is getting sharper now. You can actually start to see clearer lines forming in the paint. That's how you know the correction is working. It goes from dull and cloudy to soft reflection, and now we're heading into that crisp, mirror-like finish. Another thing to remember is temperature control. If the panel gets too hot, you can damage the clear coat or cause uneven results. So Joseph is keeping everything controlled: pressure, speed, and working time. That balance is what gives you professional results. Also, don't underestimate wipe-down checks. Every now and then, you want to stop, wipe the panel, and inspect your work. What looks perfect under compound can sometimes hide small marks that only show after cleaning. So inspection is part of polishing, not something you do after. Now we're getting very close to that final stage. The clarity is improving, the gloss is deepening, and the surface is becoming more uniform. This is where patience really pays off, because the difference between almost done and perfect finish is just a few careful passes. All right, now Joseph is going back in with a fresh application of polish, and this is actually a really important part of the process that a lot of people overlook. So what happens is, after sanding and initial polishing, the surface can sometimes look a bit uneven in gloss. You might even feel like the shine has gone backwards a little bit, and that's normal. The sanding stage removes defects, but it also removes clarity for a moment. So now we're rebuilding that clarity properly. This second stage of polish is a different product, more of a refining polish rather than a heavy cut. Joseph is applying it evenly across the pad and then working it into the panel in small sections again. You don't want to overload the surface, just enough product to get a smooth, controlled working time. Now watch closely. This is where the transformation really starts to show. As the polish is worked in, the paint starts to clear up again and the reflection becomes more stable. It goes from slightly hazy to clean to that deep, wet-looking gloss we're chasing. And remember what I said earlier, don't panic if the shine looked like it disappeared after sanding. That's just part of the process. You're not losing progress, you're just rebuilding it properly in layers. Joseph is still keeping everything controlled: slow arm speed, even pressure, and consistent overlap. No rushing, no random movements. Think of it like ironing a shirt. You don't just go crazy and hope for the best. You work it section by section until everything is smooth. Now, as this polish breaks down, you can actually see the surface tightening up. The reflections are getting sharper, and the finish is becoming more uniform. This is where you start to see the real payoff of wet sanding, followed by proper machine polishing. And here's something important. Listen carefully. Your pad and product combination matters a lot here. If your pad is too aggressive or your polish is too heavy, you won't get that final crisp finish. That's why we always step down into a finishing polish like this. Joseph is also doing something you should always copy: cleaning or checking the pad between sections. A clean pad gives a consistent finish, while a clogged pad can leave you chasing defects that don't exist. Now we're really in the final stages. The paint is starting to look deep, almost like it has layers of glass on top of it. This is what people mean when they say wet look or showroom finish. And just like that, we've taken it from dull sanding haze through correction and now into a refined high gloss finish. This is why we take our time, because the difference between average and professional is just patience and proper technique. We're almost at that final reveal, so stay tuned, because once we step back and check the panel under proper light, you're going to see just how far this finish has come.